What happens when you get into a crisis? When survival itself becomes a test of your character and wisdom. Today we are exploring a story that challenges everything you think you know about compromise, integrity, and what it truly means to live spiritually, and what it really means about rituals. Let me tell you about a story that answers these questions in the most unexpected way. This story comes from the Chandogya Upanishad and touches upon the distinction between need and greed, the distinction between true spirituality and mechanical rituals. Ushasti Chakrayana of the Chandogya Upanishad was a brilliant scholar of the Vedas, a man who understood the deepest spiritual truths. More than that, Ushasti was a man on a mission. He was deeply committed to spreading the message of proper rituals and authentic spirituality. Ushasti had dedicated his life to teaching others the true meaning behind sacred practices and rituals. Now, when famine struck the village he was living in, Ushasti found himself stripped of everything: his wealth, his status, his security. He was starving. His wife was starving. And here is the crucial point. If he died, his mission would die with him. The knowledge he carried, the authentic teachings he was meant to share, all of it would be lost. Would he survive to fulfill his greater purpose? In his desperation, Ushasti went searching through his village for food. That's when he spotted a villager who was fortunate to have some food on his plate. Seeing Ushasti's plight, the villager says, "I'm willing to share some of the leftover food, my friend." Now you have to picture this moment. Ushasti, a very religious, sacred guy, thinks this food, primarily leftover beans, is not fresh. It's eaten by somebody. It's not pure by ritual standards, but it's food nonetheless. It is survival food. So he takes the beans. Yes, a spiritual man like him does accept leftover remains for what he needs to survive. But then the villager also offers some water that he has already sipped. Here is where something remarkable happens. Ushasti refuses this sipped water. He says, "The beans are necessary for my survival at this moment. The water that you all have already sipped and sharing with me is greed on my part if I take it." Now, this story isn't about beans and water. This is about one of the most profound teachings in spiritual philosophy. In a crisis, compromise isn't failure, it is wisdom. But there's a crucial distinction as well in this story. Ushasti accepted what was necessary for survival, but he drew a very hard line at the excess. The beans would give him energy to continue his sacred mission, to spread authentic spirituality and proper ritualistic understanding. The water, that was desire in the cover of a need. That was greed trying to sneak in during a vulnerable moment. And this is what, my friends, the scriptures call it kama, desire, the pull of unnecessary desires. Ushasti is teaching us something very profound. Even in our darkest hours, we can maintain our spiritual integrity by understanding the difference between survival and indulgence, by understanding the difference between need and greed. Now here is where Ushasti's wisdom really gets put to test. Strengthened by his mindful meal, Ushasti goes to where the priests are now performing ritual chanting. And what does he see? Three priests, well fed, comfortable, prestigious, mechanically reciting the sacred chants. They just are going through their motions, hitting all the right notes, but missing the entire point. And Ushasti, this hungry, humble man who just ate leftover beans, impure food, he stands up to challenge them. He says, do you know what you're doing? Do you understand the presiding deities behind these three chants? Do you grasp their spiritual significance? These well-fed religious priests were stunned. Who is this man, this poor man who is questioning their authority? Ushasti doesn't back down at all. If you chant without understanding he wants, your heads will fall off. Now, he's not talking about literal death. He's talking about spiritual death. The death that comes from empty ritualism. Then Ushasti reveals the truth to the three priests. He says to the first, prana, the life force itself, is the essence of every chant and is universal. This life force, when it's in your body, must be used to help others. He says to the second, Aditya, or the light force of this universe, the sun, is the essence of every chant, and the energy gained through this life force must be used to help others. And he finally tells the third, partaking of desirable food is a necessity. Food that is pure in nature is the essence of every chant, and each one of us must be grateful and feed the needy. By understanding the divine powers behind every ritual, you're not just reciting words, you're connecting with the forces that sustains this entire universe, says Ushasti. No matter which ritual, but when done effectively with intellectual thinking, at the end, they lead to the same source. Ushasti continues his teaching to the three priests. True chanting of even a simple mantra like Om is enough. But that must be rooted in knowledge, not mechanical repetition. You see, inner understanding outweighs external purity. Think about the beautiful irony here. The priests had everything: proper food, ritual purity, social status, religious authority, but they had lost the essence of what they were doing. On the other hand, Ushasti had nothing. He had just eaten impure leftover beans. He was poor technically, impure by their standards, but he had something they had forgotten. He understood what the rituals actually meant. Despite his poverty, he became the voice of authentic wisdom. He knew the difference between need and greed. He knew what hollow ritualism was, and he challenged it, and he stood for it. The story hits us right where we live, doesn't it? How many times we go through motions in our practice, in our religious practice, in our spiritual practice, our work, our relationship, without really understanding why we are doing everything that we are doing. We never pause to question. How often do we judge spiritual authenticity by the external appearances and fall for it rather than inner understanding? Ushasti shows that crisis can actually purify our intentions. When everything non-essential is stripped away, what remains is what truly matters. The Chandogya Upanishad teaches us through Ushasti that dharma, righteous living, doesn't abandon us in crisis. It transforms. It becomes more essential, more refined, and more powerful. When you're facing your own personal famine, whether it is financial, emotional, spiritual, you have choices. You can abandon your principles entirely, or you can do what Ushasti did. Accept what you need for survival. while rejecting what feeds your ego. The next time life strips everything away, remember Ushasti Chakrayana's story. Remember that sometimes our deepest wisdom emerges not from comfort, but from crisis. Not from having everything, but from understanding what we truly need, focusing on that core. And remember that authentic spiritual authority comes not from external status and the number of followers or the size of the organization, but from inner understanding. The voice of truth might come from the most unexpected places, even from someone who just ate leftover beans. Because sometimes you see the hungriest person in the room is the true seeker of truth, is the one who truly understands what it means to be spiritually fed. I will talk to you very soon. Till then, stay healthy, stay blessed.